When asked to produce a Sunday school class for anyone who chooses to tune in, well, that's a little daunting. So I will tell you what we do ordinarily in our class. But then you may not know what kind of class we are, the Sid Sowers class. We are older adults. I guess we have to admit to elderly. Can you believe we started out many years ago as the young adults? Of course you can. We haven't aged much in our mind's eye. On an ordinary Sunday, we start never at the 10 o'clock appointed hour, which was originally 9:45, till someone actually realized that some went to early church and were not ready to join the class before coffee, since I guess when we began there was no coffee hour. Not to say that we didn't have one, it was of our own making, and we had our own coffee maker, so timely and up to date. So anyway, after arriving a bit late, we are usually recognized as we wander in. Some have appeared right on time, so sometimes we re-recognize folks. Anyway, we start with various things. Sometimes it's a word from our local paper on Saturday, an Earl Crow column, and we get an edited version of that. Sometimes we hear about class members who are sick, and most recently we've heard about our sister Jane who died. Oh, how we miss her. We lamented having no service, so look forward, all of us, to gathering for that whenever it is. The group of lessons we have most recently done, including a program on the deacon process. And this is what we talked about. These nice-looking young people here, one who's a woman pastor, and the other one who is a male deacon. The difference is the clerical collar, this is about the pastor, the clerical collar is a common symbol worn by pastors that identifies their role in pastoral ministry in the world. The stole worn by the pastor is draped around the neck and hangs straight down from each shoulder. A deacon's stole is usually worn diagonally from the left shoulder across the alb and emphasizes the importance of connecting worship and service. A unified cross design to be worn as a pin for ELCA deacons is being developed. It will be worn outside of worship as a symbol to identify a deacon as a presence of the servant of Christ in the world. We began for our first session in What Wondrous Love This Is by reviewing hymn number 666. After trying to get my wonderful group to sing it, they wanted to know what is the melody, I don't know that, etc. I tried a verse in fairly good tune, and then how about a good reader reading it? And eventually we thought, all read it together, so we read it together. And we intended to read more verses together, but we never got to. And it is now April 5, Passion Sunday. I always thought this was Palm Sunday. In my home church, we usually had Confirmation Sunday on Palm Sunday, and we young people who were to be confirmed floated out of the pastor's home right next door to the church and filed down the aisle and were confirmed and questioned and received our first communion. How things change. So I will now give you a little explanation and two small tastes of Wondrous Love. And remember, this is a very familiar hymn. What wondrous love is this, O my soul, O my soul? What wondrous love is this, O my soul? What wondrous love is this that caused the Lord of bliss to bear the dreadful curse for my soul, to bear the dreadful curse for my soul. This is an American folk hymn, and it is an example of the whole devotional booklet that we were looking at. What wondrous love Jesus shows for us and the world in his journey from baptism to the empty tomb. In Matthew, for the 2020 year A in the Revised Common Lectionary, Jesus predicts that he will be betrayed, arrested, and abandoned. and put to death. Yet he continues on to Jerusalem and the cross. This wondrous love accompanies, guides, and empowers us on our journey toward Easter's baptismal renewal in Christ. It inspires us to sing, serve, and share God's love with others. Wondrous Love provides a devotion for each day from Ash Wednesday to the Vigil of Easter, traditionally known as Holy Saturday. Devotions begin with an evocative image and a brief passage from the Gospel of Matthew. The writers then bring their unique voices and pastoral wisdom to the Matthew text with quotations to ponder, reflections, and prayers. This is from April 5th, the Sunday of the Passion. Matthew. The chief priests also, along with the scribes and elders, were mocking him, saying, "He saved others. He cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him come down from the cross now, and we will believe in him. He trusts in God. Let God deliver him now, for he wants to. For he said, 'I am God's son.'" The bandits who were crucified with him also taunted him in the same way. Now, this is a part of Americana, a book, and it is for you to ponder. Her mother pulled Iphemolus' ear and with an almost gentle tug, as though reluctant to cause real pain. She pulled it twice, once and then again, to emphasize her words. The devil is using you. You have to pray about this. Do not judge. Leave the judging to God. The only judgment that matters. A small Nigerian congregation is rumored to have ties to dirty money. A young woman named Ifemenu has spoken lustily and hastily, adding to the climate of suspicion. Her mother pleads with her to not be so quick to judge others. Throughout his ministry, Jesus was the subject of many rumors. Even now, as he suffers on the cross, pouring out the power of his redeeming love, he is mocked and judged. Those who publicly shame him cannot believe he is the Son of God. Our spirits cringe as we read this scripture text because we know Jesus doesn't deserve this humiliation. But we also know he will overcome the powers of sin, death, and even the demonic ones. So we watch and pray, grateful that this wondrous love is freely offered to strengthen us when we ourselves are judged unfairly by the world. The only judgment that matters belongs to our God of justice, truth, and liberation. April 6th, Matthew. From noon on, darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m, and about 3 o'clock Jesus cried with a loud voice, "Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani," that is, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Then Jesus cried again with a loud voice and breathed his last. This next thing to ponder is by one of my favorite authors, Toni Morrison, who's also a Nobel Prize winner. It is from her book, Sula. As Reverend Deal moved into his sermon, the hands of the women unfolded like pairs of ravens' wings and flew high above their hats in the air. Then they left their pews, for with some emotions one has to stand. They spoke, for they were full and needed to say. They swayed, for the rivulets of grief or of ecstasy must be rocked. And when they thought of all that life and death locked into that little dead coffin, they danced and screamed, not to protest God's will, but to acknowledge it. Jesus cried out. Most of us find it difficult to deal with the death of someone close to us, whether the transition from this life is surprisingly peaceful, extraordinarily difficult, or something in between. We struggle with the impact of the loss and the truth of our own mortality. We struggle to deal with emotions that make us and those around us uncomfortable and even afraid. In crying out on the cross, Jesus makes room in the life of his church for all of us who need to cry out and express our grief with shouting and moaning and groaning, with swaying and rocking and dancing. He cries out for all who feel abandoned and for all facing their own death or the death of a loved one. Jesus cries out to God with the opening words of Psalm 22. This psalm also says, if you put our ancestors trusted, if you in you our ancestors trusted, they trusted and they delivered, and you delivered to them. To you they cried and were saved. In you they trusted and were not put to shame. We too can cry out to God, knowing that we will be heard. Merciful God, whenever grief surrounds, as you graciously draw near, we give thanks for such wondrous love. Let all that is within us bless your holy name. Amen.